We are here ready to do the Bible study for John chapter 17, verses 6 through 19. We started chapter 17 last week, and that was the beginning of a prayer that Jesus says as he is transitioning from speaking with his disciples at the table that we now consider the Last Supper, and then heading out to the garden where he will be betrayed. So it's happening right before his arrest and then crucifixion. So that's important to note, just what's leading up to it, the context in which it's taking place. So he's speaking to God, but the disciples, his followers, are in the same room listening to what he is saying. Last week, the theme of the first 5 verses of this prayer was to recognizing that Jesus's work is just about complete, and talking about how he is moving into the time of glory, and then also recognizing eternal life and what that means, and that eternal life is to know God fully. And just a reminder that for the Gospel of John and for Jesus's ministry within it, eternal life is something that is not a then and there, but it is a quality and a aspect of life that can be entered into in the present and then fully realized in the after, and that that it means to be drawing close to God, to be in God's presence, to see the world through God's lens. I'm going to read to you from the Voice translation initially, just so that I think it gives a better, a more accessible read to just enter into the overall message. But then as far as the Bible study portion of it, we will break down the NRSV version. So again, Jesus continuing in his prayer. You, who in this case God, so you have entrusted me with these men who have come out of this corrupt world order. I have told them about your nature and declared your name to them, and they have held on to your words and understood that these words, like everything else you have given me, come from you. It is true that these men you gave me have received the words that come from you, and not only understood them, but have also believed that you sent me. I am now making an appeal to you on their behalf. This request is not for the entire world. It is for those whom you have given to me, because they are yours and mine, mine and yours. For all that are mine are yours. Through them I have been glorified. I will no longer be physically present in this world, but they will remain in this world. As I return to you, Holy Father, remain with them through your name, the name which you have given me. May they be one, even as we are one. While I was physically present with them, I protected them through your name. I watched them closely and only lost one, the one the scriptures said was the son of destruction. Now I am returning to you. I am speaking this prayer here in the created cosmos alongside friends and foes, so that in hearing it, they might be consumed with joy. I have given them your word, and the word has despised them because they are not products of the world. In the same way, I am not a product of the corrupt world order. Do not take them out of this world. Protect them from the evil one. Like me, they are not products of the corrupt world order. Immerse them in the truth your voice speaks. In the same way you sent me into the world, I am sending them. It is entirely for their benefit that I have set myself apart, so that they may be set apart by truth. Okay, we're going to work through the NRSV version. Just some notes as we kind of get into this is it's important for us to remember we're looking at this text as people 2,000 plus years after Jesus's life on earth. And that means we have centuries of tradition and theology, and understanding of who we try to articulate and understand who Jesus is. And that has led to theologies of Trinitarian God, a Trinitarian God, and it is easy for us to say Jesus was incarnate God, but what we're reading in John here is kind of a recognition that those early believers are coming to those conclusions that we take for granted as we are introduced to them from the beginning. Their first introductions of Jesus wouldn't have been as crystal clear for them. And so this is beautiful because we get to see kind of this lens and this transition of their awareness and Jesus's awareness of their awareness. So here we go. Jesus is saying, I have made your name known to those whom you gave me from the world. That's verse 6, just the first part of it, and we're going to stop there. And so name, what does it mean when he says, I have made your name known to those? Now, it's not to say that the name was the only important thing, like literally saying the name of God was the ticket. What the idea of a person's name, and we still have qualities of this when we talk about like, it's a representation of my good name, or things along those lines, that to say, like, to talk about somebody's name in this manner is to talk about their quality or their essence, like their being is wrapped up with that idea of name. And so he's saying, I have made your existence, your being, your character known to those whom you've given me from the world. And that's a huge theological piece or a huge theological belief in the Reformed tradition and many others, Christianity, I think, as a whole, is that Jesus is the ultimate revelation of God, that the God known through the Old Testament scriptures, the God known in our day-to-day interactions as we see God revealed in the world, that God is most fully revealed and known and recognized in the ministry and life and teachings and death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That in in choosing to become enfleshed, God was self-revealing God to the world. And so this makes sense. Through Jesus, the character, the name, the essence of God has come close, has become more known, not just in an intellectual way, but in a relational way. And that happens, as the disciples and as others get to know who Jesus is. And so I have made your essence, your character, your existence known to those whom you gave me from the world. They were yours, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. I think it's interesting because sometimes we have this, sometimes I have an adverse reaction to this idea of being something that is given to somebody else, like that you don't own me, like this possessiveness. And yet I love what is being conveyed here, this like deep treasure that Jesus views his followers as real gifts and treasure, and that he delights in them. I think of parents who, talk about their kids as a gift from God. And I love to feel that Jesus has such a deep affection for his disciples in that same kind of manner. And they have kept your word. This kept is associated with obedience, and yet that obedience means to hold it, to carry it. They have carried it. They have been entrusted with it. They have found it to be trustworthy. Like when you obey a command, when you obey rules, you're saying that they're worthy, that you believe that they are trustworthy, that they will hold up, that they will lead you to where you want to go. And I love that here, what happens just before in the Gospel of John, from the whole time at the conversation at the table as he's doing I am the vine, you are the branches, and then he's comforting them, saying, you're going to see despair, you're going to scatter, you're going to not fully get it, but also telling them what is to come. That here in verse 6, he's saying, these are the ones who have kept your word. And that when we think of people who obey perfectly, and I think sometimes we think the disciples were perfect, and yet we look at the life of the disciples as they follow Jesus, and then even in the days to come of the arrest and crucifixion and resurrection, how they don't seem to always get it, how they make bad choices, how they deny Jesus, how they turn their backs on each other, how even into the book of Acts, how they're constantly questioning what the right path forward is. They feel and appear to be extraordinarily human. Humans that make mistakes, humans that don't seem to always get it. They seem easy to identify with. And so if that's Jesus's definition of what it means to be keeping the word or obeying God, I can fall in line with that. That's beautiful. Now they know everything you have given me is from you, for the words that you gave to me I have given to them, and they have received them, and know in truth that I came from you, and they have believed you sent me. All of that is to say that big theological thing that these disciples, these followers, have made that jump of that Jesus is not just another prophet. Jesus is not just a war hero that's going to lead them to victory. Jesus is not just a nice rabbi or a good teacher, but Jesus is from God, of God, that Jesus's words are God's words. And so it's making a theological statement that we now take for granted, but that this would have been powerful and world-changing in the moment. I'm asking on their behalf. I'm not asking on behalf of the world, but on behalf of those that you gave to me, because they are yours. All of that's to say is that this portion, this petition of this prayer, is intended directly to impact the disciples, the followers, the believers. Next week, in the next petition, we're going to look at what it means. The next piece is those outside of that group that he prays for. And so this is specifically saying who the intended audience is, or the intended recipients are. And again, reiterating this, they are yours, and all that are yours are mine, and all that are mine are yours, and I have been glorified in them. I love the idea that through the lives of these broken, imperfect humans, that Jesus is saying he has been glorified. Because if through all of their mistakes and all of their questions and all of their doubts, God can still be glorified, then again, that's giving, saying that we're capable of that. We can follow in their footsteps. And now I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, protect them in your name that you have given me, so that they may be one as we are one. Again, just this beautiful idea of Jesus' transitioning from ministry. Like, he recognizes that he won't be healing blind people, he won't be doing miracles, he won't be ministering to people. He is transitioning towards the final days of his life, and he recognizes that, but he also recognizes that though he's leaving, he's leaving behind a legacy that will continue to follow in his footsteps and to do what they have committed to doing together. Father, protect them in your name, that he is concerned about them, that he loves them so much that he knows that he has gotten them this far. Please make sure that it continues. While I was with them, I protected them in your name that you gave to me. I guarded them, and not one of them was lost, except for the one destined to be lost, so the scriptures may be fulfilled. I think it's interesting to step back and to realize we know how the gospel narratives go, and that everybody makes it to the end. But there were moments of great tension, there were moments of great danger, there were moments constantly where things could have gone differently. And I love that this prayer reveals that Jesus felt the weight of that, felt the responsibility of taking care of these ones who were his followers, of not putting them in harm's way. But now I am coming to you, and I speak these things in the world so that they may have my joy made complete in themselves. We talk a lot, we think a lot about Jesus as kind of this somber teacher who told everybody what to do and, was perfect and wonderful. And that's true. And yet I think we lose in our visualizations of Jesus that he wanted people to experience joy, to experience this great exuberance that wells up inside and can't help but overflow. We don't often think of Jesus with a big smile on his face, a joyful Jesus, but I like that. I love that idea. And one of the commentaries I read this week pointed out all of the different places in John that Jesus explicitly says that he hopes for his disciples to have that joy. And so I love this line of just that my joy may be complete in themselves. And I love the translation that it specifies themselves and not just in them, so that it is clear that what Jesus is wanting, like what Jesus is saying, is that the essence of them, their name, their being, their, like what makes them them, is what brings him joy, and that he hopes that they can have fullness of joy in them, in their being. So it's not that they do all of the things right, it's not that they follow everything to the letter, but it is that they understand that just their existence makes him so elated, so happy. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. The word here for belong literally has this rootedness to it, which I think is wonderful, coming after John 15 with the abide in me, I am the vine, you are the branches. Like, they're not rooted in the world. Their foundation is not of this broken culture, this structure that society has created of pitting people against each other, of saying who's in and who's out, that they're of a different world order. They're rooted in God's kingdom. And according to Jesus and the way that he lived his life, what does God's kingdom look like? God's kingdom is when you touch the people who the society believes are untouchable, that the people who have been marginalized are brought into the fold, that you have dinner with people that others think aren't worthy, that you reach out and love and care for people regardless of the boundaries that society has put up. I am not asking you to take them out of the world, but I'm asking you to protect them from the evil one. They do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. So again, this sanctity, this rootedness, and that the goal isn't to run away from the chaos of the world. The idea is to exist within it, and that God provides a way for us to be sustained through it. I was telling Bible study, it reminds me of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace from Daniel, of how the men get thrown into the flames and the guards who are witnessing it see a fourth person in the flames. But God doesn't extinguish the flames, God doesn't open the furnace. God helps them to endure the flames until the soldiers end up releasing them. And I just love that idea that, like, it is going to be hard. There's no promise of this being easy or God taking away the challenges, but that God will help us to remain, to be sustained through it. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is the truth. Your word is truth. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. So sanctify means to make holy, or to holyify. And holy is to be set apart. And an element of sanctification is not only that you become set apart and made different, but that in the process of being set apart, you're also equipped to be able to handle the differentness, to do the work that you're called to as you are set apart. And so I love that not only are we called to be different and set apart, but God will provide what we need in order to be able to live into that fully. As you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. And for their sakes, I sanctify myself, so that they may also be sanctified in truth. So this is kind of a foretaste later on in the Gospel of John, as he enters into the upper room after the resurrection. He says, I am sent, just as the Father has sent me, I am sending you. And so that's a reiteration of this here, of this idea that this mission that Jesus has begun, that it's not over yet, that the disciples, the followers, the believers are going to continue and continue that legacy and continue to spread God's love and word into the world. So that's it. I hope that you feel a little bit of the depth of this passage a little more after we pull it apart together. I love that as Jesus is preparing to say goodbye, this kind of conveys that those deep feelings of affection and care, but also a little bit of the anxiety that he is hoping and praying that the disciples will be cared for in his absence. And then, he desires them to have joy and unity and to know that they are capable, that he believes in them, that they are capable to do the work at hand. So I hope you have a good one. See y'all soon. Bye-bye.